When I come around, got the whole thing wobbin'.
Now we go on to our NFC East rankings. Now each and every week, me and Darius get together. We go over a new division, and we talk about. Last week we talked about the NFC North. I controversially put the Vikings at number 1. You put Aaron Rodgers, I believe. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers at number 1 because, as you say, it's Aaron Rodgers.
It's Aaron Rodgers. You can't bet against him when
That's
he's
true.
healthy.
Now we go to the NFC East, which is the most talked about, the most popularized division because they are in big-name cities. You got New York, you got Philly, you got Dallas.
America's team.
And then you also have, Washington, D.C. You're literally hitting all the biggest cities there is. Number 1, let's get this one easily out the way. It's the Eagles.
Easily, without a doubt, Eagles.
Eagles, I have them at 12-4.
I got them at 11-5.
Which I think 11-5 is probably the low mark for them. I think at best they can do 14-2. The only thing is how well Nick Foles is going to perform with that offense. And how is
Carson Wentz?
Carson Wentz won't be ready
okay.
until I think maybe week 3. They say week 4.
Okay.
So you still need to look at Nick Foles is going to be the starter unless Carson. And then also, how does Carson Wentz do from this injury? How does he recover from this major injury? And same with Jason Peters. He's also coming back from an injury as well. They added Dallas Goedert, a tight end from South Dakota State, I believe. A very, obviously a small school, but he's a great producer there. Another tight end added to the mix. All you're doing is keep adding weapons for Carson Wentz. And that's always going to be a good thing for your young quarterback. Biggest loss is Michael Kendricks. I still want to know why they cut him. He's a big leader for that team. And he's one of the key pivotal moments, but that defense is still pretty good out there. And their biggest add to me also is a guy named Sidney Jones, a guy they drafted last year that was out. He actually injured himself during his pro day. And that couldn't be any worse, especially for a rookie trying to get drafted, a guy trying to get drafted, to get hurt on your pro day because that means and it was an ACL injury, and that means you're out the whole season. And so it's kind of like his redshirt season, and now they get to bring him in. He's now fully healthy. He's going to be part of that great defense, and I think he's going to have a big look out for Sidney Jones to produce well for the Eagles.
Definitely.
Number 2 for me, I have the Giants. What's your number 2 team?
My number 2, I got America's team. I got the Cowboys coming in at 9-7, but I'm on the fence about that. It might be 8-8. I don't know.
To me, relatively, these records are relatively the average of what I think their best can be and what I think their worst can be.
Yep.
And let's talk about the Cowboys for a second. That's my number 3 team. The record I have for them is 6-10. That's my low ball record, and I actually believe that's where I think they're going to end up being more closely. I think 8-8 is relatively where they may ultimately end up. Why do I think they're 8-8? Is because now they're trying to make this offense revolve around Dak Prescott and running the ball. Granted, you have a great offensive line to do that. The problem is you still don't surround Dak Prescott with any weapons. You took away Des Bryant. Now, granted, he wasn't having a good repertoire with him anyways, but at the same time, Des Bryant does a lot of things other than catch the ball. He is a target. You still target him because he's the number 1 receiver. The reason why Cole Beasley gets open looks. The reason why Terrence Williams gets open looks is because he's getting covered. Same with Jason Witten. Jason Witten also got covered. He's now not there.
Yeah, he's retired. As
well, too. And so how are you going to... You move into when Dak Prescott is now the focal point. Now, if Dak Prescott is the most important player on this team, if they're going to be successful, is how they manage Dak Prescott in this offense. Ezekiel Elliott is always going to get his. He's probably going to average over 1,500 yards behind that offensive line and be in top 5 in rushing touchdowns. But it ultimately comes down to you passing the ball. You can run the ball all you want, kill the clock. But if the other team is throwing touchdowns and it becomes a shootout, do you really believe Dak Prescott is going to be able to do that? Would you have your fate in Dak Prescott slinging it against Carson Wentz, against other teams in the NFC?
Definitely not. I wouldn't.
Because like if you look at his weapons, they added a guy like Allen Hurns. People tend to forget that they added him, and that's going to be their guy. They're going to be used as Des Bryant. That's their Des Bryant replacement, and not really sell Terrence Williams and Cole Beasley and stuff like that. But still, it's going to be hard for me. My prediction, like I said, is at 6-10. Though I did think they added in a great rookie linebacker, Leighton Vander Esch. It's like you said, Sean Lee gets hurt too much. This is their immediate replacement, and he's going to be an immediate impact player for me as well in that defense.
No doubt.
Let's get to talking to the Giants. That's my number 2 team. That's your number 3 team there. I have them, even though number 2, 8-8. What's your record for them?
For my Giants coming in at number 3, I got them going 7-9, mainly because, I mean, no doubt they picked up a great running back, and I know they've picked up at least one offensive line.
Oh, Nate Solder.
That terrible offensive line. But they're still iffy with this whole quarterback situation. Eli Manning isn't getting any younger. Literally, he's old.
Exactly. He's around 34, 35 years old. He's on his last legs, and he's also not a good regular season quarterback. You're getting a lot of guys back from injury. And I think the Giants ultimately they put all their chips on the table for this year. Like, I really believe they're like, listen, this is Eli's last year. We have to, if we ain't gonna win, that's it. We'll blow up the team next year. They traded for Alec Ogletree, a linebacker we didn't even get the touch there for the Rams, who's now on the Giants. They got Jonathan Stewart to be a complimentary back. They draft Saquon Barkley, an immediate impact player. You get Nate Solder. You completely get rid of all the bad offensive linemen on the team with Justin Pugh and their center they had there, Westberg, I think. You kind of get rid of big name contracts in Jason Pierre-Paul. You got rid of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. I'm still very iffy on this defensive back group for them. Landon Collins is still a premier safety in the league. I like him a lot. But regardless, I think they put all their chips on the table with Saquon Barkley, OBJ coming back healthy, all the Sterling Shepard coming back healthy as well too, and all these guys, and hoping that Eli Manning can throw for at least 4,000 yards, and OBJ has a great season yet again, and Saquon Barkley rushes for over 1,300 yards and double-digit touchdowns. Now, granted, if they do that, they are a team to watch out for. But Eli Manning is so inconsistent. There are times where Eli Manning looks like an amazing Hall of Fame quarterback. And there are times where he literally throws the ball with his left hand into the end zone and he throws like 5 interceptions a game. You don't know and that's literally Eli Manning's whole career. He's literally been, we should get rid of him, to he's the greatest New York quarterback of all time. The guy who beat Tom Brady to also the guy who couldn't beat the 0-16 Browns at times. And
it's true.
He's very hot and cold, and especially at his age, all quarterbacks, there's always that big drop off. It's always happened time in and time out. Brett Favre had it where he had an amazing game in the season with the Vikings. Next year, completely off the map and didn't even look like he belonged on the field. Peyton Manning threw for 5,000 yards. 50
broke the touchdown record. 55 touchdowns.
Next year, couldn't even get over 2,500 yards. Looked like he had a noodle arm.
Literally was carried by the defense for a championship.
Got replaced by Brock Osweiler, who performed just as good, if not better than him that season. And you see it eventually that these quarterbacks' age eventually catches up to him. All those hits and all those punishments they take eventually catch up to him. So does it finally get to him? Does it finally, that inconsistency finally become a thing where he's literally inconsistent the whole season? And the Giants cannot afford to do that by drafting all these. Now, granted, Saquon Barkley is a great draft piece. You're going to have him for a while. Same with OBJ. And so I think that's the reason why they didn't trade OBJ, because that was a big headline. If you don't remember that OBJ wanted out because he wanted to get paid. And granted, he should get paid. And they were like, no, we'll keep him for this season, keep him under his rookie contract, and then next season, depending on how we do, that's when they're going to blow up the team. I really believe that this team's about to get blown up next year. I think this is Eli Manning's last year. I think OBJ is going to probably, I do believe he's going to be on the team. Like, I want to see what direction they want to take with him. I think if they're successful, and which he is going to be, no matter what, he's going to ball out. The only reason why he gets traded if a team that trades for him gives him something they can't refuse. Like, oh, we'll give you 2 first-round picks and a future first-round pick. You know? Something along the lines the Rams were willing to do this year.
Yep.
But ultimately, I think the Giants are 8-8. Because I think the Eagles are going to win this division easily, to me. The worst team is the Redskins for me. Tell me your record for them.
So, yeah, I got the Redskins last in that division, and I got them 5-11. But according to you, that might be a little generous.
That 5-11 is too nice. I think this team can be a 2-14 team or 4-12. They're not better than 4-12. They're, as much as I was talking and ranting about the Giants and the Cowboys, they're still better than the Redskins. The Redskins traded away key defensive players with Fuller, their cornerback. Granted, they still have
Ryan Kerrigan.
Ryan Kerrigan. They still have guys like Josh Norman on the defensive backfield. But this is the thing I don't understand about the Redskins. So you pretty much said we're not going to sign Kirk Cousins, a guy who throws for 4,000 yards, who was an easy transition for y'all from RG3 to him. You're lucky you drafted that one of those two panned out. And Kirk Cousins, as much a lot of people talk smack about him, he's overrated, this and that and the other. Every year he's thrown for 4,000 yards. Every single year.
That's pretty good.
He's had nobody as a receiver. Deshaun Jackson was his most talented receiver he's ever had, but that's back then when Deshaun Jackson was done with. He wasn't Deshaun Jackson with the Eagles now.
Definitely not.
Jordan Reed is a great tight end. He cannot stay healthy at all. You have guys on Vernon. He made Vernon Davis look competent when Vernon Davis was barely getting even playing time with the Broncos, and even now with the Redskins. They have no running game whatsoever. That's why they drafted Geis, which I do believe he's going to get a lot of heavy workload, but I think it's just you're going to ask too much for him as a running back. And you go ahead and you trade for Alex Smith. Now, as the Redskins, that makes sense before the extension. You're going to get a guy who's on his last legs. You're going to get a bridge quarterback, and you're telling your fan base, we're at least trying. You know, we're not going to stick with Colt McCoy or whatever backup you have there at the Redskins. You also, Kirk Cousins won you too many games for you to draft a quarterback in this year's past draft. And you guys didn't go out and trade for one because they already did do that. You already gave up your life to get RG3, and RG3 is no longer on the team. And so that was a failed experiment. So now the Redskins are too scared to do that yet again. But guess what? You starting the process all over again. Now you're literally one of the worst teams in the league. You got a quarterback that's on his last legs, and the only reason why he won't retire for that 5-year extension to a 34-year-old quarterback. That means he's going to play till he's 39. Mind you, this is Alex Smith, who has never led the league in touchdowns, who's never led the league in yards, who's never really even been the focal point to any offense he's been a part of. When he was with the 49ers, they ran the ball really well. That's what they made them successful with. Frank Gore and telling him to literally, we're letting you not lose the game. That's what we want you to do, is not to lose the game. What's he going to do with the Redskins? Well, they have guys now. They're going to make him that. They're going to probably make it running the ball, and then who they're going to throw it to? Jamison Crowder? That's somebody Kirk Cousins made into a somebody. You know, and all these other players too. Doxson is a good piece that they drafted in the first round, still hasn't performed at all. Then on top of that, when Alex Smith was also with the Kansas City, they ran the ball with Jamal Charles and Kareem Hunt. That's where the success of their offense, and they just told him, hey, throw it to Tyreek Hill because he's just too fast for these guys. You know,
much.
have Travis Kelce as your tight end. Well, a number 2, if not also, when Gronk's not healthy, he's the best tight end in the league. So you have these weapons around him, and then on top of that, you have a great defense behind Alex Smith. Where do you go to? You go to a team who don't got no weapons on offense. You got a team that is going against the Super Bowl champs, a team trying to win the Super Bowl in Eli Manning's last leg, and the Dallas Cowboys who are too talented to lose too many games, to be honest. You got a Redskin team where you're going to be you're the worst team in the division, and whatever your out-of-conference schedule is, you're more likely ain't going to beat nobody else unless you're facing the Browns. That's going to be one guaranteed win if they do play them this upcoming season. And then on top of that, you said you're not going to pay Kirk Cousins all that money, but you decided you want to sign Alex Smith to a 5-year extension till he plays till he's 39 years. This is why I have the Redskins going 2-14, if not 4-12. This, if you want to place a bet that the Redskins will have a top 5 draft pick in next NFL draft, because they will. They're back to where they originally started. You drafted RG3 to try to win you a Super Bowl. Didn't win nothing. You had Kirk Cousins. Didn't want to sign him on the team. Now you're back at square one and you're trying to draft a quarterback while paying a guy who used to be good or average to play till he's 39 years old and won't retire because he got to collect his paycheck. Unless they're going to cut him.
Yeah, they're in a bad situation right now. Safe to say that.
Like what player on that team you think is really good? Josh Norman. Josh Norman and Ryan Kerrigan are guys that headline that team. And Trent Williams. Those 3 guys, those are not enough players to make you win 5 games, to be honest. Alex Smith can pull out a victory here and there, but ultimately I don't believe it whatsoever. So our list says, my list goes as the Eagles. Both me and you have the Eagles number 1 team. The Redskins are the number 4 team, and I think me and you relatively agree with the Giants and Cowboys. They can flip flop. They're a team that are both 8-8 or relatively that around that area, where it's like they're too talented to suck, but they're not that talented enough to beat the Super Bowl reigning champs, who are gonna get better. You know, this is Carson Wentz.
They're going to get their MVP back.
Yeah, and then also better weapons on offense and, under another year with Carson, because Carson Wentz is young, so moving on. That's about done it for our NFC East prediction. Please leave a comment below on what you think about me and Darius's prediction, and leave a comment on who do you think is going to be the standout player within this division. To me, I think Carson Wentz is the best player in the division. Well, I think he's going to get the most recognition in this division.
Definitely, for sure.
Right. So that's it for today's podcast, guys. Please always subscribe and hit that notification button so you know when we upload new content. And until next time, we'll see you then.